This is Jeannie with Norna Scraps, and today we're going to be doing a little bit of digitizing in Stitch Artist 1, 2, or 3, and we're going to be creating a Blackwork pumpkin. The tools that we're going to be using are the point input, which is this first toggle next to draw, the line stitch, which is this one, and the motif fill, which is this one. I want to point out that in the Embrilliance manual, on page 114 on the MAC manual, it actually describes which mouse clicks can be used to create which type of node. The nodes are what give you your lines. You can create curved lines or curved nodes with a left mouse click. If your line nodes are made by holding the Control key and a left mouse click, you're going to get a straight line. And if you have a cusp is what creates an angle, for example, to go from here to there, kind of a V. That point of the V is created by holding the Shift key during a left mouse click. And to delete your nodes, you backspace or simply hit delete on the keyboard. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll to the file, select the image from the upper left-hand side of my screen, and I'm going to scroll to where I've downloaded my line art. It is a JPEG image, and I found it at clipartpumpkin.com, so I hope you saw what I did. I selected the image itself and then selected open, and it appeared on my screen. Now, what happens if you can't see anything like that? Always double check your little framed art up here on the toolbar. And if it is not gray, it is not engaged. I like to say it's gray gauged, and that means it's workable. I can size my graphic just a little bit. I don't like to go too far because sometimes it makes it more difficult to actually digitize the parts of the design. So what's my plan? I always go at this with a plan. I am going to be using the Draw with Points tool right here, and I'm going to manually add lines or splines around each section of my pumpkin, including the stem. After I finish that, I'm going to convert those lines into run stitches, which are right here, and eventually I'm going to add the motif fill. Now, this may not work for you, but it works great for me. So let's get busy. Let's zoom in on this little guy and start digitizing. I'm going to want to digitize each section so that one feeds into the next. I want to decrease my jump stitches as much as possible. So I'm going to select my draw, and I'm going to start right here because it just makes sense to me right now. And I'm going to left mouse click, left mouse click, and now I've got a spline because it's an angle. I'm going to hold my Shift key down, mouse click, let go of the Shift, and mouse click, spline, mouse click, and now I'm going to close it. And I'm going to go right up here and select my tool, and if I open my objects menu, you can see I have actually created that section. Now, to make it easy for me to see, I'm going to go in and select a really bright, let's go with a bright yellow. That way maybe you can follow along with me a little more easily. And I'm going to add a run stitch. It's not great, but at least it's there. And you can see that I have this section now outlined. So the next section that I'm going to outline will be this section. I'm going to edit as I go just because for me that is easier to do. And this first section is really just a personal choice. If I want to move my nodes around, or I want to create a little bit different curve, a little bit of a smoother curve, I have my nodes, and I can click on my node and I can move it one way or the other. You can see it better offline. And I can actually create make a lot of adjustments by simply just moving this node. I can move my Bezier handles in or out. Will create a difference in the way the node the curve is created. A reminder, curves are 3 points, so it would be point, point, point over here, always 3 points. The next thing that I want to point out, so I think that's edited just fine, is the beginning and the ending. Remember, I said this next section is where I'm going. I like to digitize with a plan. So I'm going to move my start and my stop here. And there's a reason for this, and you'll eventually, I hope, see it. So that done, I want to set the node, set the stitches, so I click off the design. Now I'm going to scroll out, and I'm going to do, let's look and see, select my whole hoop. That didn't work real well, did it? And I'm going to, there we go, use my magnifier and go into the next section. Now, the plan is to start here and go around this section, approximating this line as closely as possible. So I'm going to select my draw tool, start at the point, curve, I've gone ahead and digitized all the sections of my pumpkin, including the stem. I've also changed the color to a dark sepia. I really want black, but sepia works. And I'm going to run through really quickly just a reminder of how we do this. If you need to get a curve, it's 3 points. Curve should be the left mouse click. If you want to get a line, it's Control left mouse click. If you want a cusp, it's Shift left mouse click. To digitize efficiently, that is so that you have minimal jumps, especially in an outline, you need to start and stop the sequential sections in the same place. What do I mean by that? We're going to zoom in quickly, and I'm going to show you what I did. If I click on it, you can see that my red and my green bow ties, red being stop, green being go, are at the lower point. I'm circling it now. On the next section, I could also select over here in my Objects menu by simply just running down. They start and stop approximately where this point ends. At this section, they start and stop. It starts where this section immediately before it ended, and it ends leading into the next section. To do that, and this makes it much easier on you, I'm going to, in the Objects menu, select design number 1. And I'm going to copy it, which is Command-C on a Mac, Control-C on a PC, and I'm going to click off the object, and I'm going to paste it. Command-V on a Mac, Control-V on a PC. And I want you to note that I now have in my Objects menu 2 separate designs. One design is going to be an outline. One design is going to be used in order to fill our pumpkin. So I'm going to select object or design number 1, and I'm going to click on it, double click so that the name is highlighted, and I am going to change the name from design with it highlighted to fill. And it's hard to see with it that blue, but if you look closely, you can see it says fill. On the second, I'm going to double click. The word design is highlighted, and I'm going to type, do it in caps. There we go. It's easier to see. Outline. And that's going to be the outline section of my design. What that means is that I can come back to this design and we're going to add our motif fill. For designs, I'm going to select the first one and I'm going to expand the object menu. And you can see I still have my graphic here, but I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to select the first section, which is labeled Run. Now it won't be eventually. And I'm going to come to my stitch tools, my stitch menu. It will be the 5th tool from the left on the bottom line, and it's the motif fill. I'm going to just tap on that. Let's go ahead. I'm going to pretend like I've not done anything. It comes in, which looks like pretty much like a regular fill, but that's going to be changing. The other thing I need to caution at this moment, and I was sweating bullets about that, are the starts and stops on this. With a motif fill, it's my understanding from reading the manual that it follows a distinct path. It's kind of like writing. Sorry about that. Kind of like writing. You know, you write, in America we write from the left side of the page to the right side of the page. Well, it's, as best I can figure, that's what the motif does. It has a distinct path that it follows to travel. So don't worry about the starts and stops. It's okay. What we're going to do is I'm going to go to the motif menu. Since I've selected the stitch, I get a new menu at the bottom, a new panel, and I should have 2 titles, a color and a motif fill. There should be the properties, which are right here, which are where we are. You can actually create a bit of gradient, in other words, lesser to greater or more condensed, tie off stitches, and you can write your own script. Density we're not going to worry about because I like the default. We add our motif, we remove our motif. We can change the height, the width, the distance between the motifs, and the rotation of the motif. Now, the rotation has to do with the motif itself, that little stitch design, not the inclination. If we look over at our pumpkin, you can see that we have the inclination lines, which are the ones with the 2 yellow dots, and that actually allows me to change the way my stitches will run. They're the plane on which my stitches run. Like they can go uphill, they can go left to right, they can do whatever. To bring it in, I'm just going to go with the default of the machine. I'm going to select Motif, Add, and I have a little menu. I've got Motif, Sample, Satin, Squared, blah, blah, blah. I like the squared. It's just my preference. And I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, I could, from any of those menus, I can add to my pumpkin. But for this, I'm just simply going to use this particular set of motifs. I've selected Squared 1, and I'm going to click OK. And it comes in, and it looks great. I love it. Not a problem at all. And with that, I'm going to click off to set them, set the stitches. And I'm going to click make my fill extend or expand on my objects. Select the second section. Let's move out just a second. To do that, again, I select my motif. Now the same motif is going to come in, and I don't necessarily want to repeat it. So I'm going to go to Remove, Add, and I'm going to go to Squared 2 and select OK. That's a little bit denser, and I don't want it to be that way, so I can take and adjust my height and my width to expand it just a little bit. I can do they operate independently. I can do it one of two ways. I can use the slider. Let's slide this on up to 5 millimeters. That's still not very big, but it gives me, by not changing the width, it gives me a little bit different look. But I'm going to go in, and the second way I can change it is simply by selecting the numbers and type my value and click off. Let's select that. It didn't do it. Let's slide up to 5. Okay, that's a little bit better. Now I may want to change my angle on this one. I want to show you one more thing before I kind of let you on your own. I am going to change the angle slightly. And I want to point out my jump stitch. I have worked and worked and worked, and I cannot get that jump stitch to move. So that's what I meant when I said that the motif follows a very distinct way of stitching. It's just going to have to be there, and that's okay. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to leave that jump stitch. I'm not going to let it aggravate me too much. I'm going to go ahead and complete my pumpkin, and I'll be back with you in a minute to do this. Okay, so I have filled all of my sections, and I think if you look closely you can see that they're each one a different section or a different style of stitching. Last thing I have to do is my stem, at least for now, because I'm going to do a little tweaking of this design. We're going to start out with a total blackwork design, and then we're going to change it. So I'm going to zoom in on my stem because I want to point out one thing. First of all, we don't want this highlight. Remember, over on our Objects menu, we actually duplicated and expanded. We want that highlight in our outline, and it's there because we just simply duplicated the same design. We don't want it in our fill. It's not going to do us a bit of good in our fill. So we're going to take and select the nodes in the stem right here, and there's a couple ways we can do it. We can kind of lasso those nodes, or we can select each node and simply delete it, which sometimes works much easier. There we go. I lassoed it by left mouse clicking and drawing around it, and I deleted it. Now I'm going to zoom in and get the little extra nodes over here, or, yeah, that's just a cusp. So I'm going to right mouse click and change it to Align, and, well, pooh. Let's try it again. Right mouse click, change the 1 to Align. There we go. Click off of it. So what I did was I selected the node, right mouse clicked, and selected Line from the menu. Now we're going to go ahead and zoom right out, and we're going to select that part of our design, and we're going to go back to our fill. And I think actually, let me see, let's remove that. Let's go to a different menu. Let's go to select the motifs, and let's do something we haven't done, the knot. Say OK. It's pretty dense, but it is the stem. Again, we can actually make it just a tiny bit bigger, so I'm going to slide up to 5.5 and 5.5 because it's square. I kind of like that. How do I know my sizes? I don't. I just simply pick what I like. And if it doesn't stitch out in my initial stitch out, I go back and change it. I am going to grab one of the yellow handles and swing this around so that I get the angle, the plane in which my stem is laying or lying. And let's go back. I want to check something out. Yeah. I think I do like it a little denser. And I think the plane is actually pretty okay. There we go. That's better for me. No, look over here. I've got something wrong. Let's just go back to the initial plane. There we go. And that gives me my stem. Now, what am I going to do differently? I am going to come in and I'm going to select objects and recolor them. Let's look at what we have as far as our pumpkin. This is truly a Blackwork pumpkin because it's in black. And we have our outline that's black. We have our stitches black. But according to one of the articles, Blackwork doesn't have to be black, so we're not going to keep it black. First thing I'm going to do is select my stem, and I'm going to, on the menu below it, select color. And I'm just simply going to pick a, let's go green, olive green. And then I'm going to select all of my sections. And to do that, I click on my first object, and then I click on my last object, and I'm going to come down to my color menu, and I'm going to select an orange. Say OK. And there I have my pumpkin. And I can come into my outline and make it either a black, or if I select color, I'm going to make it a brown, a dark brown, and OK. And I'm going to select my run, and I am going to make it a bean stitch because I want just a little bit more texture. And there's a couple other ways I can tweak this outline, but for now I'm going to leave it exactly as it is. And you can see I have a 3-color design, and here we have my Blackwork style pumpkin ready for fall. I am so glad you joined me today. I hope you can take away something to add to your scraps of information about Stitch Artist, and that you enjoyed being with me as much as I enjoyed being with you. Until next time, bye.